Hello and welcome to the Women's Foundation on Cable Tonight show. I am Ruby Bright and I am the Executive Director of the Women's Foundation for Greater Memphis. It's great to have you join us this afternoon. We really have a great program. October is the month that fall is great. The weather has been great in Memphis, Tennessee, and we're really excited about the work of the Women's Foundation at this time. Again, thank you for joining us, and on Cable Tonight's show, we'll focus for October around domestic violence. Our theme is really looking at the impact of domestic violence. For those of you who are not familiar with the Women's Foundation, our mission is to foster leadership and support leadership among women, to promote philanthropy, and to support programs that help women and children reach their full potential. I'm pleased to tell you that the Women's Foundation is an organization that is the fastest growing women's foundation in the country. We are very proud of the fact that the Women's Foundation for Greater Memphis is recognized in the top 10 women's organizations around the country, including 160 members. We are supported and run by a board of directors of 35 dynamic women leaders and 10 trustees. The Women's Foundation since 1996 have awarded over $14 million and invested that in the community, and we have supported over 395 programs with over 100 organizations. So the Women's Foundation in its 17 years in Memphis has made a significant difference working with many organizations, including the Exchange Club Family Center that we will be highlighting tonight, really to help you understand ways, a little bit more about their programs, and also specifically to share how they provide support services for those who have been impacted by domestic violence. So I'm really pleased to also let you know that the Exchange Club Family Center is one of the organizations that we've supported. We just last month, actually it was the last couple of weeks ago, we awarded $630,000 supporting 33 programs, and we had our great annual grant showcase event recognizing the organizations for their tremendous contribution to support services, helping families, helping women and children to sustain their lives, to make a difference in their lives, and helping to build their economic self-sufficiency and just making a difference. We believe in that. The Women's Foundation number, if you want to learn more about our work, is 578-9346. So I'm really pleased to let you know who our guest is tonight, Barbara King. Barbara King is the Executive Director of the Exchange Club Family Center. And Barbara, welcome to our show this evening.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, it's great to have you, and it's always great when I have the opportunity to talk to one of our executive directors of our grantee agencies who has the tenure that you have in the organization, who's seen Memphis, change and grow, and know, for a long time that it's important that organizations work together to make a difference. Gosh, Barbara, we've served on several committees together over the last decade, I know.
At least.
So welcome again, and I'm just going to start off with you.
Okay.
First of all, just telling us about the mission, and vision of the family, the Exchange Club, and the Safe Family Centers that they support, or that you support, and a little bit about you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm delighted. I'll always talk to anybody that'll listen to me. So, the Exchange Club Family Center, obviously I've been there almost 20 years. It's very dear to my heart. It was opened here in Shelby County in 1984. And it was sponsored by the local exchange clubs, which is confusing, but there's 7 clubs like Rotary or Kiwanis, and they support the center. They actually got the money together, and if there was enough need for the program and they could raise the money, they started these centers. We're one of about 60 Exchange Club Family Centers now across the country.
Really? So there's a consortium of clubs that actually that come together
Right.
to support the family center.
Right. The Exchange Club's national mission is child abuse prevention.
Okay.
So that's how all of this started. So
20 years ago here in Memphis, that
1984, which is a little bit more than that. But so now maybe people understand what our name means, because it doesn't say what we do, that's for sure.
No, but you know, you where you are on Union Avenue, I mean, it's a mecca, it's a beacon. You know, I mean, we may not know exactly what it means, but we know that it's a very important
Thank you.
component of our community. I think, you know, just in its location, and I drive down Union, I'm smiling about it.
Well, good.
And so now tell me, you know, with that, there clearly it was started for children, neglect, and abuse, but you know, what are the services that you provide?
Okay. Well, you're right. It was started with just the mission of child abuse prevention, and over the years, and we started out with 3 programs like parenting education to change the dynamics at home, public education about the issue, and then we had a parent aid program where trained individuals would go in the homes every week and work with families. We still have all 3 of those programs, but we have grown so over the years, we now have 23 programs. We have a staff of 35. We are probably as big a training facility as we are a service provider. It's hard to imagine, but last year we had 90 interns come through for an internship. Wow. I want to say 90% or more of them are graduate level or doctoral level. So it's pretty amazing, and that helps us see the many, many, many children we see in families.
So you help children, I mean, you see children, and obviously it is an intervention.
Absolutely.
And there are different levels of intervention that occur as a result of that.
Right.
And how do you, the question will be, well, how do you get your clients, or how do people know to access the support services that you provide?
Okay. Well, we have some programs that are just strictly, if you can say strictly, child abuse, and then we have some that are pretty much geared for domestic violence. We jumped into the world of domestic violence about 15 years ago because the two overlap so greatly. I mean, we did a anonymous survey of individuals in our parenting class, asking them if there was other violence in the home, and it was like 96% said yes. And these children, we get asked a lot, well, these children aren't abused, it's the woman that's the victim. These children are so abused by just witnessing this. They have a higher degree of post-traumatic stress than children who've been abused themselves. It is just devastating for these children. So both of those together, it really is a child abuse issue. And so we're working, first of all, to help these children become safe. I mean, that's obviously our first priority. And then next, to work with them on how to cope, how to heal, begin the healing process, how to talk about it, communicate, not just with us, but with their parents or their caregiver, and get them back on the road of recovery from this. Because of that's our mission, we do a lot of different programs, and because we want these children's lives to change, we don't work with just the children, we work with the adults, we work with the victims of domestic violence, we work with the perpetrators of domestic violence, and then with these children.
You know, it's as you talk about this, and you know, we obviously, with the Women's Foundation, we support several organizations that part of their work is addressing the domestic violence issues in our community, and whether it starts with the children as the point of entry for that discussion, or whether it starts with a parent. But as you talked about this, I realized that when we come to Domestic Violence Awareness Month, which October is there, you know, and many times you have these months and it's a celebration, and what we want to do is, you know, raise the consciousness, but also to ensure that if anyone's listening to us now, you know, that, and they know about a situation around abuse, what is abuse? You know, we know that it's neglect of some kind, but, you know, how do you describe that from, you know, the Exchange Club's family centers? Well,
child abuse is defined as either physical abuse, it can be neglect, where the family neglects the child's education or medical needs or things like that. It can be emotional abuse, which we've seen a great deal of, which actually is the hardest to get over in a lifetime, is emotional abuse. If you're constantly told you're not worth anything, you know, I wish I hadn't had you, why aren't you as smart as your brother or sister, you know, things that just destroy self-esteem totally, and that would be the hardest. Domestic violence also is these three things. The children sometimes get hit in the process, they're trying to stop it, say. Definitely emotional abuse for these children. And also the neglect, because the mother usually is so focused on survival and getting these children, you know, to school or whatever, that there is a lot of neglect, other needs for these children. I forgot my train of thought.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
as you were talking about that, I was talking
Yeah.
about thinking just the basic needs. You know, when you have a family, and clearly domestic violence crosses all social and economic
Absolutely.
levels of every spectrum.
Absolutely.
But you know, my research showed that those who are in poverty or, you know, live below or at the poverty level are the highest number that's impacted, and just trying to, you know, to provide the basics,
Exactly.
you know, for the family is hard, difficult. Then a child who's in a situation like that, having going to school, you know, just having all life changes, you know, imagine under just the situations of just growing up, you know, just going through life,
normal life,
as a
right,
child, right?
right.
And well, you know, I used to say normal life, and I was like, what's normal?
What is it?
Yeah, right.
right.
So I was trying to just say, just you know, coping with everything that you deal with in a life growing up. How much more difficult, you know, it is for the victims. And you know, I know that I read also that there are some focus even on the abuser in terms of the levels of that that is passed on, you know, from generation to generation.
Right.
And so I guess how do you work out all of those transitions? Thus 23 programs, I guess.
Right.
Is that typically that one individual, whether that's a child victim or the parent, the abuser, that maybe even another generation, do they go through a process of moving from one service to the next service to the next service as you try to bring the lives together?
Right. That's part of the beauty of the agency, in that we have so many, and once they come to us, and the first time, a lot of times they're mandated to be there, particularly the offenders in domestic violence. But then we also have a lot of referrals from Department of Children's Services because of child abuse. So a lot of them aren't happy to be there. They are within a very short period of time, and they come to trust us, and then they're much more likely to participate in anger management or parenting classes or other things that they certainly need. You had mentioned the children and coping, not just with normal life, but also other issues when they have domestic violence at home. These children have some very definite emotional needs during that time and afterward, and they have to really get over these in their lifetime, or they will continue the cycle. They will either become the offenders, or they'll become someone that has relationships with offenders. So these children, we're dealing with the main emotions of, first of all, depression, which is obvious. These children can, even at a very, very young age, can suffer immense depression. The fear, obviously, the person that takes care of me and I trust may not be there. The guilt these children are going through, that if I had just cleaned my room, or if I hadn't, you know, sassed my mother or whatever it was, this wouldn't have happened, it's my fault. The anxiety, you know, they live in a constant high level of anxiety, which really, a lot of the studies and the research that are going on now, this high level of anxiety really precludes them from developing other social skills and that type of thing. It's a fight or flight, and they're always in the fight position, scared to death. So it really changes their entire lives. It changes their ability to communicate with other children, with adults, to cope with any kind of problem. And you think it's strange how they would repeat the cycle, but if that's what they grow up with and that's all they know, then they become adults and get into stressful situations, and they're going to react just like the families they grew up in. Yeah. So it is vital to get to these children. They are the key to stopping this in the next generation. If we wait till they're much older, it's too late.
So, you know, these are the people that you're assisting, as well as many other organizations.
Right.
You know, they're the cases, they're the clients, they're the people, they're the children that have been referred, or you know. So for the unknown affects all of this as well.
Right.
Even within families. So I think if you're just joining us tonight, we're actually talking about domestic violence, and specifically as it relates to children and their parents, their families, and how do you provide support. So, you know, referring, how, you know, sometimes people don't report. One, they suspect, not in their family, but somewhere else, you know, somewhere else, to someone they know, whether it's on the workplace, neighbor, church, or whatever. How do you report that, you know? Can they contact you directly?
Absolutely. Child abuse is a little bit different from domestic violence. Okay. Child abuse, if you suspect it, you may not absolutely be sure about it, but if you suspect it, you are legally and certainly morally and ethically required to report this, and the reports go to the Department of Children's Services. Certainly someone could call our agency and we could help them make this report.
You could refer them to, right. And how do we call your office?
It's very easy, 276-2200, and no matter what program you're interested in or what kind of emergency you're in, call this number and we will make contact with one of our counselors or whoever can help you.
So 276-2200. Call that number and we can for sure get a referral.
Right.
In terms of what the next steps should be. And I know that I actually serve on the board of the Family Safety Center, and I know that also is a location and a source for this.
Right.
But you know, the thing I think is important is you talked about it a little bit. Trust. Even when you're referred and you're there, you know, whether you're the child, the victim, the abuser,
it's
how to breaking that cycle, and then repercussions if you get in trouble for reporting it.
Right. You cannot get in trouble for reporting it. Even if you are dead wrong, it is by far better to report it and be wrong than to not report it. And well, I say you can't get into trouble. Anybody can sue anybody, but they would not win in court if you reported it in good faith, certainly. And then domestic violence is different. There is no legal requirement that somebody report that. And a lot of times it's just strictly on the victim to report this and to get help for her children. And sometimes adults are in denial about this. We have a lot of mothers who say, well, we don't ever fight in front of the kids. You know, the kids never see this. Well, we can show you, even through research, that even infants, even actually prior to birth, these children are affected by the screaming and the yelling and the violence. These children are devastated by this. We see increased heart rates within the babies before they're even born, and we see all kinds of different issues once the baby is born, the nervousness, all these things that happen when there's violence in the home. So these children are affected terribly. As far as obviously the mothers have to bring their children in, so a big part of what we do is public education, that your children are affected by this. Even though you may be the most wonderful mother in the world, your children have been affected and they desperately need help. They won't just get over it. It just doesn't happen that way.
Well, the reality is that this is based on research and experiences that I've seen. Even when reporting domestic violence, there's a strong chance that there's going to be forgiveness of the abuser, and the family is back in that situation. And typically and unfortunately, in fatalities.
Mm-hmm.
There's been reports,
Oh,
many
right.
reports
Mm-hmm.
of, abuse, of
Mm-hmm.
violence, protection order requests.
There are, I think it's the average is 7 times a woman leaves a relationship before she actually leaves, before she can get away. Many reports usually, she keeps thinking, and I'm just saying this in general, she will keep thinking, I can change this. He's sorry, he's not going to do it again. And the cycle starts all over again. There's a honeymoon phase where he's being wonderful and kind, and oh, I'm so sorry I did this, and then it goes right back to where it was before. It's hard for these women to leave. A lot of them have no skills as far as employment skills. They have no money. They're totally dependent on him.
So it's dependency,
yeah.
economic dependency.
Well, and he's isolated them from family and, other friends. They really don't have any sense of self-esteem. They think, a lot of them really are convinced it is their fault. They did something wrong to cause this. And a lot of them don't have transportation or anything that any way to manage on their own, and so that's why they're there. And I think it's right now in Shelby County and Memphis that only about, I want to say only about 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 cases are ever even reported. You can imagine the numbers that are out there. In Shelby County, there's about 30,000 reports of domestic violence a year. That's just reports. And consider that in 50% of those homes there's children, usually 2 or better, more children. So that can tell you exactly there's thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of children.
Yeah, hundreds of thousands.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
that go through this.
30,000 is actually 5% of the Memphis proper population.
Right.
But
it's at least 5 to 6 times more than that.
Yeah.
At least.
So again, if you're just joining us, I am Ruby Bright, the Executive Director of the Women's Foundation, and this is our October On Cable Tonight show. And our focus this month is really looking at the impact of families when there's domestic violence in their lives, and particularly around children. So we have numbers on the screen here if you need some helplines, and you know someone, or you're in a situation. If you're watching this and you're in a situation, choose any one of these numbers and someone can direct you. But tonight we're focused with the Exchange Club Family Center, and I'm talking with Barbara King, the Executive Director of the center, and she's really sharing information about the effect on children, especially in domestic violence or neglect of children where there's an abusive situation. And how critical that it is that we address this, and that you get help and help others to seek help when this happens, because it's just vital. The impact of that in this multi-generational cycle. I was at a meeting in Aspen, a think tank, and it was talking about, when you're providing support services to really make help a family, you have to work with both the children and the parents. And as I said, specifically with the Women's Foundation and with the Exchange Club, we know that most of the people that we're trying to support and those that we're helping are those who are low income or no income families who really have to deal with so many other issues, Barbara. So just life skills, like skill training. You have to do those referrals as well, or provide that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason we have 23 programs, is because if we're going to help these children, we obviously have to help the parents, and there's several different needs in that area, and so it just expands. If we did just zero in on the children, we would not be effective, at all. I did want to say one thing too, when we were talking about call or report it. We have a huge, it's huge to us, Latino program for the Latinos, and we have 4 bilingual counselors, and so they can call at any time and get help. And if anyone calls and needs us, we will not turn you away. I mean, none of these victim services have a fee to them. We are always going to be there and provide those, and make sure you're safe, and hopefully find you a place to stay right away, and then help work with the children. So we're there to help. We're there to help these children. Our hearts are there. We really want to make this better for all of these families.
And it's a crisis situation.
Oh, it is.
I mean, and I think that that's what we need to recognize is that this is a crisis situation, and we really need to deal with that. And so I applaud the fact that many of our grantees, we're happy, so pleased to support, you know, the Exchange Club and the Family Center to get the word out.
Right.
You know, having resources is one of the other things that is a big decision point for many who are abused. Where do I go?
Right.
And then is there safety and security when I get there?
When I get there, right.
You know, I think that that's really important. And it really, you know, what we found in our work with Women's Foundation is that, you know, finding that trust and creating a shared opportunity where people can have a decision, be a part of the decision about and charting their lives is very important. And I would imagine that, you know, people think that is counseling, but it's really helping to change lifestyles in the family and a full transition.
Absolutely.
A full transition of a better life for the children and for their family, right?
Right, absolutely right.
Everybody.
Right.
So again, we're talking about domestic violence and its impact on families, particularly children, and ways that you can make contact to help your family, yourself, and save lives now and in the future. And I think it's important that we say that domestic violence also spans, you know, it's not just always women and children, you know, I mean, you know, domestic violence goes across all areas. I want to repeat that again. But the most important thing is if you need help, if we could leave here tonight with anything around the focus of domestic violence in October, is if you are a victim or you know someone or you have a concern, call one of these numbers, support someone, save a life, and also help a family in their transition because, you know, we want the best for the families.
Absolutely.
Barbara, we really appreciate you being a part of our On Cable Tonight program and the work that you do, your contribution. As I said, you're executive director, obviously, for the Exchange Club Family Center, but you are just your own personal contribution back to this community. I mean, the Partners for the Homeless program that we worked with for a couple of years, really working with that. And I've just been in many, many places where you give every day to your work there with this with the Exchange Club and the center, but so much that you give back to the community. And I just want to thank you for that contribution. I want to thank you for the work that you're doing, and I want to thank the audience for joining us tonight and learning more, being more enlightened about the Family Safety Center, its issues, and how much, about the Exchange Center, the Exchange Club, got a lot of organizations going on in the Family Center. Thank you for joining us, and we hope that you will join us next month. Tonight we focus with, again, Barbara, thank you for joining us. And we want to make sure that you remember the Women's Foundation for a Greater Memphis. And we are taking nominations, a call for nominees for our Legends Award. The deadline is Monday, December 10th. This annual event is held in April, where we announce our leaders, women leaders, and their tremendous contribution to our community. So go to our website, at WFGM.org, www.wfgm.org, to nominate someone. Thank you for joining us tonight. And again, for more information about this organization, the Exchange Club Family Center, as well as the Women's Foundation, call us at 578-9346. 578-9346, the Women's Foundation for a Greater Memphis. Thank you for joining us.